the next episode.
Yo, I'm Devin Reed, and I'm on a mission to build a bigger and more inspired career as a marketer, creator, and entrepreneur. After 10 years in sales and marketing and leading content for $2 billion SaaS startups, I know one thing: real growth takes more than basic tips and tricks. And learning from the best will help me reach my potential. Let's ride. So I'm traveling America for candid, street-level conversations about creativity, marketing, and playing by your own rules. You'll get practical advice to grow your career, confidence, and income, and have fun doing it. Are you ready? This is Read Between the Lines, the show for people who want to achieve phenomenal results.
What do elite content marketers do differently from everyone else? It seems like they have the cheat code that helps them achieve more success faster than their peers. Well, today we're about to find out because my guest has cracked the code. I'm talking about Tas Bober. Tas is the founder of Scroll Labs, where she helps B2B SaaS companies create effective landing pages that drive massive results. And she does it in an unconventional way. So I had to invite her on the show to learn how. In this episode of Read Between the Lines, we break down Tas's process for creating effective landing pages that drive big results, and how to pick and commit to your niche so you stand out and create waves of inbound leads. Plus, her branding superpower that helps her build trusted scale, even in a crowded and saturated market. Are you ready? Let's ride. Shout out to our sponsor, Goldcast. They are the B2B video content platform. They know that video is the most effective medium for engaging audiences and building long-lasting brand relationships. And they do more than just host amazing digital events. They recently released Content Lab, which is an AI-powered video tool that I use to turn long-form content into branded clips in minutes, not hours. And it's cool because you can use your digital event footage or upload video files. To open your account, go to goldcast.io or hit the link in the show notes. Now, on to the show. So thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thanks for having me, all the way in San Diego.
Yeah, you traveled a long ways.
I did. Yeah. I did, just for you.
Definitely not for that presentation you had earlier today. That I heard you did very well at.
Thank you.
So one of the themes on the show is something that I respect and like a lot, which is when folks take a big bet, specifically on themselves, bet on their career. And you took a big bet, I think a year or two ago. You'll correct my timeline, but you were an in-house marketer and you had a vision and you said, you know what, I'm outie and I'm going to go work for myself. So can you help me understand a little bit about that trajectory and what motivated you to take the leap to work for yourself?
I actually did not have a vision whatsoever. So kind of a crazy market. And I was like, okay, I need to do something creative because I was burning myself out working in-house. I'd lost my team and I was trying to do 45 projects and 3 people's jobs and working 50, 60 hours a week. And I'm like, I need to do something for myself. So I actually wanted to start a parenting podcast.
Tell me more.
My daughter is a temperamentally sensitive child. Nothing medically wrong with her, just very sensitive. And there weren't a lot of resources for that. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go start this parenting podcast and we're going to call it Candid Parenting and whatever. And I wrote out 70 episodes, like got topics for that, interviewed a bunch of friends, did all of the stuff. And I left the marketing towards the end because I'm like, it's marketing. I live and breathe marketing. How hard could it be? Turns out it's actually quite hard because they're like, well, if you don't have an audience, then no one's going to come listen to your podcast, because having a podcast is like having a house party where you're inviting people, expecting them to show up, but they don't know who you are. So they're not going to come to the creepy person's house and hang out. So I was still working in-house and I had someone reach out to me for job, consulting work. And I think that's when the light bulb went on, that I actually could do something with this. Mm-hmm. And then July of last year, just left my company at the time, might have been 2 years ago, and then took a first fractional CMO gig and just went out on my own and never looked back.
Wow. So It sounds like kind of burned out, not feeling fulfilled creatively.
Yeah.
And I feel like something had to have happened because now you found your niche. You found like a sweet spot, so tell me about that. Like, how did you kind of see like, hey, this is a, kind of like an area I can serve. Like I'm skilled at it. It's clearly something that there's demand for and it's something I want to do.
Yeah, I wish that I could tell people that I just had this realization, but sometimes someone else needs to tell you what that is. And it was funny because I was posting personal development stuff and I was growing an audience just like based on that. And Anthony Pieri found me and we had been talking, and his first message to me was in all caps. Never talked to this guy before, okay? All caps, what are you even doing? And I'm like, I'm sorry. What's going on?
Who is
Are
this?
you?
Yeah.
And he's like, you have all this digital and website background. Why wouldn't you talk about marketing? And I'm like, because I'm burnt out. I just don't want to do it anymore. And he's like, how could you not want to talk about the most interesting subject on earth? I'm like, okay, I wouldn't go that far. Okay, it's not that interesting. And so here comes Anthony again. We have a networking call. He's like in a Panera or something, like just like ugly painting in the
I
background.
think I've had a call with him where he's also at a Panera or something. Yeah.
Just like mouthful of sandwich. And I get on there, I'm like, hi, it's so nice to finally talk to you. He's like, what are you even doing now? What is this fractional thing? Let me go to your website. I'm like, don't go to my website.
Yeah.
Goes to the website. And so then he was like, okay, listen, we worked with 150 startups. Based on your background, actually, we need someone to send to because they're always asking us about landing pages and paid stuff. And that is just not our thing. I wonder if you could find something there. So after we talked for an hour and him barking orders at me, I got off the call and I'm super annoyed. Okay. I'm just irritated. I'm like, don't tell me what to do, whatever. And after twiddling my thumbs, I'm like, fuck it. I changed my entire profile. I changed my entire website that night. The next day, I had 2 people reach out to me, screenshotted my tagline and said, what's this about? And I said, yeah, I'm trying this new thing where I'm just going to try a landing page engagement. They're like, okay. And then I was on an RFP for Snagit and Bombora, and we won the Snagit RFP.
Wow.
And that kind of started the landing page thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so I just kind of went 50% in, not all in. But yeah.
Well, my question was like, how did you find and pick your niche? That's like where I wanted to go, but it sounds like you kind of already had it. You just sort of needed to like realize it or see it, or in this case, have Anthony, who I love and love to tease, kind of like shouted at you a little bit, like, "Hey, it's right in front of you."
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of it too. And now when I talk to solos or people trying to start out, I will talk to them. They'll have the same thing, and I'm like, "Why don't you do that? You literally just told me that you love doing the pitch decks." Oh, yeah. Okay. So sometimes it is someone else just telling you what you already knew. And with Anthony, he looked at my background and he's like, you have like the 400 websites or whatever. And then you have this digital end as well. And you were responsible for the numbers. Like, why not combine all of that into this thing? And I'm like, that's actually a really good idea. And I was irritated that someone else came up with it instead of me, but I guess thank you, Anthony. I'll name my next child after you.
Don't do that.
No,
and don't give
I
him any extra credit.
I know.
For those who don't know, Anthony, he runs Fletch PM with Roberts, and he's very vocal about his approach to clear and clear homepages. That's his whole thing.
Yeah.
Fun fact, by the time this episode's live, you'll see his work and my work on my new website, so people can pick that apart if they want. But all right, that's a cool story. I like that a lot. And so today you seem pretty locked in. So you're doing Scroll Labs.
Yes.
Right, which is
look at you announcing it before I am.
I was going to say that. Let it out. By the time this is live, I'm pretty sure folks will know. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, is that the specific niche? Like, it's creating landing pages for growth stage B2B SaaS companies, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the whole POV, which on that I did come up by myself.
The POV.
The POV.
Yeah.
Because at first, when I started the landing page thing, I was doing what everybody else was doing, which was, conversion rate optimization. Rah.
Yeah.
And then after I ran through a couple of engagements, I realized that I was making a lot of optimizations, not based on the conversion rate, which is just like one signal, but with B2B buying, because I had a budget when I was in-house, right? And I just did this in my talk where I said, everything I hated as a buyer, I did as a marketer. This like landing page with a form that's twice as long as the copy and some stupid image that has nothing to do with the rest of the page. And it's like a marketer is like salivating at the mouth because they're like, oh my God, this landing page is going to get me so many leads. But that wasn't what was performing. And then I showed 2 long form landing pages where we actually talked about all the things that you're sending a buyer on a fishing expedition to get: your pricing, your credibility, the process, like what can they expect if they do engage with you. And we saw some crazy results from that. I'm like, no, if B2B buyers are information and research heavy, then they're not trying to do conversions. They are consuming the information and they're coming to you like 30, 40 times before they even engage. Hockey Stack has data to support that as well. So that's when I pivoted to it's very consumption based. And so the Scroll Labs thing was because, we're optimizing for them to scroll and actually read the information on the page. It's just one lab. It's not many labs.
Did I say Scroll Labs?
I think I also said it, but
I think I pluralize any lab. I just think there's so you had an insight as a in-house B2B marketing leader, which was like, hey, here's how I buy, but here's how I market. And for some reason, it's like almost like, I don't know, like body dysmorphia, like marketing dysmorphia, like I'm doing one thing, but I'm seeing another.
Yeah.
And you use that to make your point of view, which you shared with me as we were prepping. And I told you I was going to have a constructive argument with you about this. But you also told it much more eloquently now than on the phone, which was like, by the way, I do landing pages and everyone thinks it's about conversions, but it's not. Yeah. And I paused and I was like, so we're going to argue on the show about this a little bit.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. But let's go down a little bit, because I imagine people come to you and they're like, hey, we have poor converting landing pages, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the number one problem. And so instead of coming and saying, hey, I will increase conversions, which is the clear path, but also the common path, you're providing a reframe.
Yes.
And you're saying it's actually not about conversions, it's about consumption.
Yeah.
What do they respond to that? Because I would go, how much time is left on this call? Can I exit out of this Zoom? Or, kidding, of course, like, tell me more, right? Like, what do you mean by this? Because it's a new way of thinking.
It is a new way of thinking. I will say this, because I talk about it nonstop, like Brendan talks about like checkbox marketing and Anthony talks about features over benefits. Most of the people that come to me are kind of already bought into the concept. So they'll start off with, oh my gosh, I love that. You talked about consumption. I've been trying to tell my VP and CMO and whatever this. And so I'm glad that we're going to do it that way. And then the other side of it is if someone comes in through a referral, and I have to do a lot more educating up front, I will get something, which I just did last week. We had a call that was a referral call. And he's like, yeah, our landing pages suck. I'm just like dying to get the conversion rate up. And then I give him the whole explanation about, well, that's not how B2B buyers buy. You're also targeting government agencies. They're highly regulated. They're probably not going to make a split-second decision right on the page. And then I show them two things, which I also showed in my talk, which is the B2B Gartner buying journey graphic from 2019 that Dave loves to show.
It's like spaghetti, right? It's like the one where it's like this leads to this, but it really just looks like, I don't know, a scroll had like paint on their feet and ran across the screen or something. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And then I show the Hockey Stack report, which is like, what does it take to generate an MQL? And I think it was like 31 website touch points for low ACV product, so that it's not just me sprouting stuff. And then I tell them, smart. I'm not going to focus on conversions as much as I'm going to focus on some of the things that will matter to you more, such as, do you want meetings? Do you want more opportunities? Do you want more quality ICP? And then show them examples of a couple of clients who have achieved those things. Yeah. That the conversions coming, it may not be directly attributable to this landing page because they may not find the landing page again. So they go directly to your website. I mean, you were there at Drive when Pranav gave the talk about causation and correlation. Right. And he talked about, look at the incremental lift over time. That's how we're going to measure the effectiveness of the paid program and the landing page.
I hope they do what I did, which was, interesting. Okay. Yeah. I'm a big fan of reframes. So like, that's what also kind of piqued my curiosity. So are these, for clarification, are these landing pages for like any type, like it could be a PDF top of funnel thing, or are we talking like lower intent, like demos and booked calls?
Yeah, so I have generally a set that I recommend. And so if they have a product specific one, if someone's looking for like scheduling software and it's Calendly, it's like product related one. But if they look at Calendly options like Calendly alternatives, then we can talk about a comparison landing page that's more, what are my options in the market? What are other software options? Why are we better? Yada, yada. Yeah. And then we have one that's trust, which no one does, but they do so well. I call it the trust landing page. And it's, if someone looks up Calendly reviews, most companies just let it go to the devices of like G2 and all of those things. But you can control the narrative with a review specific page where you can curate like the right types of reviews to put on there. And then you can say something like Calendly said, over 20 million professionals use Calendly. You can kind of add credibility and context
Yeah.
to those reviews and talk
Yeah.
about it from a specific use case or problem angle. Those do really well. And then you have the other standard ones, demo, pricing, the kind of really bottom of funnel ones. But I think there's a lot of education in the product itself versus like, why scheduling, is important, or like, Webster defines, what I mean?
That's my favorite opener.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do any, like, I feel like marketers are good. Like B2B marketers have the gated content down.
Yeah.
Right? Like we've done that enough.
Well, my question too is like, having created a ton of gated content in my career and having written a lot of landing pages, like if a marketer came to me and was like, hey Dev, so conversions were pretty low on this one, but like it's all good because they scrolled to the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
I would like, please see me in my office. Like this is a problem.
Yeah.
But that makes sense for that type of asset. Like, look, we need to convert. It's like the point of the whole thing. But what you're saying is more of like, in a way you're like, it's education, but it's really like you're trying to earn mind share.
Yes.
Because you're like, look, the likelihood that they convert is low because of what their mindset is, not anything we're going to put on this page. So instead, let's optimize and be intentional about the page to earn mind share, trust, I'm guessing maybe showing pricing so that later when they're really actually ready to start a sales cycle or make a purchase, we're the first one that they call. I call it the first call principle. Like I want that mind share so they think of me first.
Yeah. And the thing is, they're going to remember the one company that shared all this information up front and didn't send them on a fishing expedition for it.
Yeah.
Just a couple of days ago, I was doing some competitive intel for a client, and I posted this thing from the DevOps subreddit. And it was like, hey, does anyone have pricing for X company? I can't find it. I can't be bothered. I don't want to talk to a salesperson because if it's too high, I'm just not going to be qualified anyway. We'll waste time. And I posted that and I blurred out the company's name. And I'm like, this is happening every day.
Right. Yeah.
You have the information. You're just choosing to hide it in the name of marketing or deception or whatever, what mystery or whatever. Like they're going to find it, and they will do borderline illegal things to avoid talking to you. Right. And it's kind of a last ditch
I'd
effort.
rather be on Reddit and get answers from randos on the internet than just like submit my information and talk to a salesperson. So I'm curious, is your like, I would say best practice is task practice, like put the pricing on that page?
I would
Reveal
love
pricing
for them to do it. You can imagine the pushback I get from B2B companies all the time, but
yeah, there's two things I don't wish on my worst enemy, which is being responsible to write the copy on a B2B SaaS homepage, because that's difficult. And number two is like make the internal battle of like, we need to show our price. I've heard all the angles. I kind of go back and forth. I think there's a time and a place based on your market. Are you, there's a lot of reasons to and not. How successful, I don't want to say how you've been because it's not on you, but like, I don't know, rough percentage, like how many people are actually like, you know what, let's give it a go?
Like 60%.
That's actually more than I thought you were going to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad.
You must be very persuasive in these meetings.
Well, honestly, when they come to me, they kind of already check that box. So it's something they're already doing, and it's usually overwhelming pricing. And we try to pare it down for the landing pages to make it a little more, simple. So that tends to work better than having, this long thing. But I have a client who actually has a really complex pricing structure, but they are more than happy to do a starting range. So we say starting at 15 grand, like obviously anybody who's not going to spend 15 grand because they're targeting enterprise, and they're like, we don't want the small guys.
So it's an intentional reveal of pricing. So it's like, it's not detracting too many or really much of the people we want, but it's going to deter the SMBs that we're like, look, that's down market. You can have it.
I almost think of it and frame it like this, which is you need to give the buyer or the champion of the product all the information they need in order to build a business case internally. And I had budgets. I had tools that I had to run the digital and website side. And I had this template right, that I had to fill out every time I wanted to make a business case to my VP, CMO, CFO, and I would fill out the same thing every time. So I just took that and translated it to a web page, and I'm like, imagine if I had access to a landing page that just did that for me. That would be amazing. I would just be like, copy, paste, and then go make the case.
So I've been a director with my own budget. And never in my life have I had a CMO or VP of marketing say, Devin, you need to buy this tool. It's always been me doing the research and making the decision.
Yeah.
And so I like that a lot because you're basically saying, look, we know they're going to do their own research. Our buyers are like kind of, I think director level, I call it at the line. There's above the line and there's below the line. I feel like at the line is the exact persona that you need. Now, that's top of funnel and there's other, you know, you need to get the CFO at some point these days. But if you can get that at the line buyer, that director, senior director person, the change agent, and equip them in the way that you said, it makes complete sense. Like, this is the way that we should do it. Provide all the information to get that mind share and to fill out their template, their RFP, whatever it needs. And in a way, you're like winning them over by making their job a little bit easier, even though it's like this indirect, like very subtle way.
Yeah, exactly. Because imagine, like, one of the blocks I talk about is like, what's the process? So if you fill out the form, which is all the way in the bottom of the page, which is already marketers everywhere, like shivering, like, what? Bottom of the page? But in the bottom of the page, and you say, you contact us, we will reach out to you within 24 hours. We will talk to you, come up with your specific use case, and then create a specific demo for you that's custom. It'll happen within 3 calls. When I'm putting it in the business case where I have to present a timeline, I can say, I will talk to them X date. We'll go over the use cases. After the discovery, I'm going to, get a custom demo to which I will, include X stakeholders.
Right.
I mean, you're just making that job easier. And at first, you look at the page and you're like, oh my God, this is the longest landing page of my life. Like, no one's going to read this, but people do read it and people convert on it all the time. And I have like a couple of case studies of that happening. I'm like, great, this is good. This is enabling me, so.
I want to shift gears a little bit, but go to something you said, which is by the time I'm talking to them, they already kind of know my point of view.
Yeah.
And that's because you are, I would be lying if I said mildly active on LinkedIn. Would you say you are hyperactive on LinkedIn?
Yeah, my husband says it's our 3rd child.
It's our 3rd child. That's good. I'm teasing you, but I think you've done a phenomenal job of what a lot of people would probably say is finding your voice. I have a feeling for you, it's more of like freeing your voice.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm like, I think you have, and I think a lot of people have a voice. They have a personality, but when they log into like, I don't know, their like work email or LinkedIn, they get like the corporate tone and they like button themselves up and they kind of prevent themselves from being who they really are. Anyone who's ever seen your posts or your comments, like, that's not the case for you. And I absolutely love that. And in fact, it's kind of how, as you say, how you bullied your way on the show, which was like just commenting on posts, and that's like how we got connected. So can you tell me a little bit of like, how did you free your voice and what kind of motivated you to say, hey, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to be who I am on LinkedIn and across my business.
This is going to sound really petty, but which is fine, right? Pettiness is allowed.
I'm pretty petty. I try to do it in private, but I'm not immune to it.
Okay. I felt like that came from just sheer unacceptance of who I was in-house as a marketer. I just felt like I had to portray this person. I had to say yes to things that I didn't want to say yes to a lot. I had to be dishonest with my team to protect shitty leadership. And I didn't want to do that. In fact, more than the work, that burnt me out more because I felt like I was acting most of the time. And then the small times and like instances where I let a little bit of tasks out, it was met with silence. And at that point, you're sitting there going, is it me or is it them? Like, what's happening? And when I started posting on LinkedIn, I was still in-house. But I started getting a different response on social than I was getting in-house. And I realized, oh, it's them. It's not me. And so that helped build my confidence a little more over time. I mean, some people are like, oh my God, it's so cringy. You're like a LinkedIn person now. And I'm like, yeah, but guess what? Those are my people because I've never felt as accepted in that kind of social environment as I have on LinkedIn. Ever in an in-house. And I've met great people. I mean, some of my best friends come from, my in-house jobs. But in terms of like overall acceptance, that only came here. So the problem with that, it just enables me. And so I push the envelope like a little bit each time. And now I'm just unhinged. I mean, it's just so rowdy. Like AI can't replicate it. And it's just Absolutely not. You know what I mean? And so now I just treat it. My husband's like, you can't treat it like Facebook. I'm like, that is exactly what I'm treating. These are my friends. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even on Facebook. So, so I'm just like, yeah, like it's so serious. B2B is like, oh, let's streamline and circle back on everything. And I'm like, bro and ratchet. And I get the notifications on LinkedIn all the time. That's like, are you sure you want to post this comment? It might have offensive language. I'm like, yes, I want to offend everybody. Let's do it. So one of my friends described it as we all knew that you could fly, but you were like in this cage. But then once you were out of the cage, your wings came out, but we didn't understand the breadth of the wings. And I kind of loved that. And so for me at this stage in my life, and I'm not saying I'll never work in-house or anything again, but I will never apologize or think that I'm the problem ever again, unless I actually like offend someone. But you know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, like, you're not marketing hard enough if you don't offend anybody. You know what I mean? I love that analogy. It's funny because I had a mentor tell me the same type of analogy, which was just a couple months ago. So I left my in-house job about 6 months ago now.
Yeah.
And I've been, kind of struggling to find my new lane, my new kind of voice and whatever. And it's funny because externally, like a lot of people probably like, we don't see that, but we always, we're our harshest critics. But my mentor was like, you have been a bird in a cage, same thing, for so long. And now the cage is removed. You're on your own, but your wings are still like clutched. And she's like, you just need to allow yourself to like, she like did a shoulder shuffle. She's like, just sort of like stretch it out and like let your wings like expand. And I know that's kind of like woo-woo in a way, but it's like, no pun intended, it's like freeing. And now I'm like, cool, I don't even have to rush to like have a full wingspan, so to speak. It's just like, okay, there's no guardrails from other people. It's whatever guardrails I want to put into place. And if today I want to put my foot over the line, I'm going to do that. And if other times I feel like being a little more timid, that's my choice.
Yes.
And it's just been great. And it's like especially helpful for like the show and some of the content we shoot. It's like, to have that like, fuck it, I'm going to do me. And to your point, and it's worked so well for you, which is why I invited you. Like one of the reasons I invited you on the show is, people say, oh, you're like pushing people away, or certain people won't want to hire you now because you talk like this. And I'm like, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's also going to attract the right people to me who are either going to be my friends or in my network, maybe be my customers. And that's really the goal of marketing. It's not to appease everyone. It's to attract the right people that I want to hang out with and help grow my business.
Yeah, one of the talks at the conference was talking about the anti-audience. So it's like you have these people you're trying to target, but then everybody else is not for you. And so I think and then going back to the landing pages again, I think there's a vein in there where it's like, we're not the ones who need to qualify the buyer. The buyer needs to qualify us. And so when you're putting stuff out there and you're like ratchet as hell or whatever, right? When they come and schedule a call with me, they kind of know what they're getting into, which further perpetuates I don't have to be anybody else for them.
Yeah.
I have to just continue being who I am because that's who brought them here.
I was laughing because it reminds me of like was that when you remember CDs? Remember the explicit language warning? Like Tas is like, my content has that on there. So if you come work with me, you already know when you hit play, you know what you're getting into. Yes,
this is the Tupac album. If you need, I don't even know like a non, like explicit artist. I've like listened to very violent
I love that you dropped
rap.
a West Coast hip hop artist that I love. So you already won more points with me.
Yeah. Gin and juice.
Keep
Start
going.
to finish, karaoke.
That's
later
your go-to?
Today. That's my go-to. It got me many fireball shots, which I never drink, but that's my go-to, and I can still rap it start to finish.
I'll just say we have a lot more in common than I anticipated, because I too have downed a almost shameful amount of fireball, maybe with Snoop Dogg in the background.
And 2 of America's Most Wanted. Oh, that's not what the show is.
Ain't nothing but against the party, but I get it. So I've hinted at your comment game, which is impeccable, by the way.
Thank you.
Now, I think you're great at it. And I think you're even better because AI commenting has happened. And so there's like a few people I'm just going to start blocking, candidly, because it's so annoying. But I want to know about it. Like, where did this come from? Because a lot of people, myself included, it's about the content you produce, right? Content you put out there, people engage, you engage back, yada, yada. I know you post, I've seen it, but your comment game has gotten to the point where almost like one, you come out of the woodworks on posts that aren't even yours or mine. Like I'll just comment on like Brendan's post and then it's like, wait, why is Tas on me now? Like she's commenting. And the style is somewhere between aggressive, sassy, and insightful, pending your mood, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
How'd I do on my analysis, and like tell me more about the comment game, because it has to be intentional.
That was good. That was a good description of it. Is very based on my mood. I'm usually feeling very insightful in the mornings. That's like my idea time. And anybody who's like texting buddies with me, it's like 5 a.m. I'm texting you like, oh my God, I just thought of this like wild idea and da-da-da. And they're like, ma'am, I'm not, my voice isn't even thought out yet. Like, why are you up? Are you okay?
It's 3 a.m. Pacific. If we could just cool the jets.
Yeah, like if we can please put our phones on silent. But I think it's the whole concept about B2B being so boring. And I think the reason why it works so well, unintentionally, is that we're not expecting it. And I think that's the other piece. In B2B, you're expecting people to be like, yeah, my CMO and ex-business, I'm like, okay, boring Susan, next, Damn
it, Susan.
And sometimes I'll have something serious to say and contribute. Yeah. But sometimes it's also like a combination of showing support to people I like, whose content I like. I show them support. Two, sometimes when it's too serious, I break the ice. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but this is also funnier. So let's just do that. Let's just have something funny on the thing. And also people just enabling me. So people liking the comments, I'm like, oh yeah, that was funny. And
I'm
then
probably doing that right now by like giving you a platform to talk.
Yeah. So everybody likes it, and that rises up to the top.
I love it. I love it. I think it's funny that you got me the other day, and I was like, when I say pissed, I mean like, when you like roll your eyes pissed, which was someone at Path Factory, I think it was Robert at Fletch, posted that he was on a webinar with, who was it? It was Natalie. I say Natalie from Nevada just because it's alliterative. She has a last name. I just can't pronounce it. And somebody else. I can't remember who it was. And I looked really good. And it was an on-demand link like, hey, we did the thing. Check it out. I commented and I was like, this looks really cool. I'm going to check it out. And then I like had a meeting, and then I come back and you're in the comments. You're not even on the webinar, and you're like, yo, this was last week. Like, get with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, the shade stung. And I was like, I know. And I got so defensive, and I was like, I know that it's an on-demand link. And like, I'm just trying to like support my friends, and I'm typing this out, and I go, dude, this is like the worst comment. She's just going to roast you harder. So I deleted the whole thing. I don't even remember what I wrote anymore. Yeah. And then before I could comment, someone else jumped in. Like, she's like, oh, Devin, yeah, it's an on-demand link. Here it is. I'm like, I know how marketing, God. So just so you know, you're like striking fear in the hearts of LinkedIn users like myself.
Yeah,
we got to come correct.
I'm always watching. I'm always watching. And I'll always look for certain topics. So sometimes like, I'll tell you this, I have a lot of people that I love and respect on LinkedIn. But they're so long form. That's not how I consume content. Like, sir, this needs to be a blog post, okay? This is just way too long.
I had to point out the irony of Scroll Lab. You just told me that it's about length of...
But it's where...
teasing. There's a totally different use case.
Yeah, I mean, you're on a platform, that's like TikTok. You're like consuming 30 seconds.
I know too.
So when you're on social, you're like, okay, I'm just checking it on my feed, right? Versus like buying a product or something. But sometimes they write it. And I think formatting is so important when you're on LinkedIn, especially. It's like people are consuming, they want to get as much value in the like short period they have before they jump into all day meetings and things like that. And so I won't read it, but I want to also support them. And so I'll just make a wild comment instead. And so that's like not very strategic. And sometimes it's just being funny. And in the beginning, I used to have like a very strict commenting strategy, actually. Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised.
I used to post about it. Like, this is what I do for commenting. And I found that I can still grow without posting by commenting. But now I just do it because I think it's fun and I'll get a rise out of someone. Or if I find something insightful, I will put... So that's why I sent you that screenshot the other day. And I'm like, LinkedIn tells you how many comments you had. And I had 129 comments in the last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to look at the timing and I was like, that's more than me this year, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. 129 comments. And I was like, about 100 of these are trolling people and just, being funny. But yeah, I try to do that combination. But I think that LinkedIn is a social platform. You're doing more than just throwing your thoughts out there and then just bouncing. You're interacting with people. You're supporting other people. That's how I've met so many people in the comment section.
Yeah.
And then ended up having networking calls, ended up being partners, working together, like things like that. So there's just so many benefits to just,
Being smart. More benefit than being smart. Well, I'm saying like, don't just try to be smart in the comments, which is people just want to agree. And I think that's why you also really stand out, is it's not even that you're disagreeing. You're just not doing the head nod and the, yes, this is good. And so I like that. Now, it's probably worth the really quick story of how we truly met. I don't think we covered this because you haven't let me live it down yet.
Yeah.
So it was probably 6-ish months ago at Audience Plus's Golden Hour event. Now I'm going to be on stage with Dave Gerhardt and Alex Lieberman, some big dogs in the game.
Yeah.
And I do a LinkedIn post. I'm like, hey, I'm super excited for this. I'm nervous. And I'm like, I'm going to loop in the audience. So I'm like, hey, I'm interviewing these guys on audience growth. If you have a question you want me to ask these guys, drop it into the comments. Now, this is one of the rare times where you just dropped a to the point comment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you put in a question. I'm like, cool. We had never met that I recall. I don't think I'd ever seen your name, which is going to come up in a second. Maybe you knew me. I don't know. You don't have to answer that. So I'm on stage. This is like an ESPN analyst. There's like the city skyline behind me. I'm with these two guys. There's a live broadcast with like 5 cameras. And I go, great. Now it's time to take a question from someone on LinkedIn. And I said, this question is from Tas Bober. No, I said Bober, I think. I put a French accent on it.
You did. Yeah. You said Tas Bober.
Tas Bober or something terrible. I had no idea. I thought I crushed it. I asked the question, asked the question, they answer. And then I check LinkedIn to be like, yo, are people liking the content or whatever? And there you are. And you're like, no one in my life has pronounced my name so poorly as you did. And I felt so guilty because I didn't know that was also like true and your style.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I was like, okay, this is kind of my people, because she called me out, and it's just come up time and time again. And so I did practice at least a dozen times in the mirror, hired a speech coach for today just to make sure I got the intro right. The last part was a lie. But yeah.
But Dave,
he did correct me on air.
Dave said, oh, Tas, oh my gosh, she's everywhere. And then he did one of these numbers, okay? He put his head on there, and another LinkedIn person took a screenshot of him doing that. And now when I comment on his post with something rowdy, people will comment with that screenshot of him doing this, like every time Tas comments.
You're shaping the culture.
And I'm not for everybody. So if I annoy you, sorry I annoyed you with my friendship,
Sorry. So speaking of annoying people with your words.
Where's this going?
Well, actually, I should say winning people over with your words. You've done such a great job building up your audience and your reputation, I like to say. Audience is great. Reputation is much more important. You've built up your reputation to the point where you're starting to get influencer marketing deals. But I believe one went terribly wrong.
Okay. I'm not going to mention the company.
If you do slip, I will beep it out.
Okay. So I was very excited. I've gotten approached before by companies I knew. And it made sense. Typically, they'd find something, it's at least something adjacent to landing pages, which makes sense. And then I would post about it. But then a very, very big company known in our space comes through. And at first I tell them, we're not doing the same thing. Like, you are doing a marketing thing, but it's not anywhere near landing pages. I just don't know if this would make sense. And they said, well, the people at this corporate place, they love you. And they want you to do it.
Which is very cool. If we pause the story right there, that's still very cool.
Yes. Yeah. I was excited.
Very validating. Yeah.
And so we kind of got into it. And it was a very formal approach compared to all of my other ones, where they were just like, we just want you. We love your voice. You have creative freedom. Go for it. And once you're done, let us just look at it to make sure like it's okay, but we trust you. We'll send you the money. Go buy. I'm like, okay. That's how most of them have gone. But this one was a very formal process. We need these 5 videos from you. I'm like, I don't do a lot of video like that. Do I have creative freedom with the formats? Like, I do a lot of graphics and that kind of stuff. They're like, well, let's try the video thing. I'm like, okay.
We hear you and no.
Yeah,
do
we
it
hear
our
you.
way.
That sounds really great. You can throw in those options, but we really just need the video. I'm like, cool. We're also going to need 5 creative concepts, very formalized, that we can also present, to the people in-house. I'm like, oh, creative concepts. I'm like, do you have an example?
Yeah.
And they sent me this example of another person they were partnering with. And it was the most AI written bullshit I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, I don't talk like that. And I'm never going to write something like that. So I put in a lot of effort. I created this whole thing and I tried to make it work because their product had nothing to do with what I do. It was just a bigger company. And I'm like, this is going to be great. So we tried that a few more times. And finally, I kept telling them, I'm like, I don't think it's going to work. Like, I understand. I just don't think so, because they kept trying to get me to do all of this stuff. And then finally we decided to part ways, which was great. I'm like, okay, this is off my plate. I don't have to stress about it. And then they say, hey, you've done so much work around this and spent so much time. We'd love to just throw you a little something just for the time you spent. I'm like, that is so nice and generous. That is so sweet of you.
Almost too good to be true, sweet.
So yeah, it was just like, wow, people are just so good in the community. And and so they were like, cool, we'll just send you some paperwork, it'll be fine. They send me the paperwork for the, us not pursuing this creative endeavor together. And there's like a half-page thing on there about a non-disparagement clause, meaning I can't, and the way it was phrased was, I can't talk about them directly, but I also cannot imply that I'm talking about them. Even in this situation like this, where nobody knows who I'm talking about, I can't even do that. Or I'd be liable. So at this stage, I contacted a few people. You were one of them.
Yeah.
We talked about it for a bit. And I'm like, what do I do? I talked to you. I talked to a couple of lawyer friends. I talked to the head of compliance at my last company. And every one of you said, fuck that. Yeah. You're not signing shit. So I went back to them and I said, I'm not signing this because of the nature of my work. I could just do like 10 tips on influencer marketing. And you could say that I'm implying something and it would make me liable. We're not doing that. And then this argument went back and forth for a while. And I said, I don't need the money. Like, it was just a bait to get me to sign it, all of this stuff. And then they tried to adjust it. And I said, I'll sign it if you remove that clause. And finally, they just sent me a piece of paper that said, we are terminating. We are not proceeding with it. It was just like a one-pager with like a line in the middle that said, we are not pursuing the creative thing. And I was like, okay. So I didn't sign it. So
I'm proud of you for not signing it, by the way.
And they tried hard. And
they do.
The funny thing is, that's also what a lot of people experience with layoffs, like your severance packages, right? Where they say, we will give you X amount of money. And then in there is buried this non-disparagement, a non-compete. We don't want you, but we also don't want you to work for our competitors for like a couple of years. We don't want you, but you also can't talk shit about us forever. Like non-disparagements are forever. And now knowing what I know, I've done that before where I've just signed it because I'm like, yeah, my severance. I would never, ever do that again. Like no amount of money is worth anyone diminishing or blocking your voice. That's how, this bullshit's like, they're enabled to do that, right?
It perpetuates.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there's been examples. One, I got a cease and desist at the time of recording 4 weeks ago. So shout out, the reader got the first cease and desist. I got my first one in my career at Gong. It took me like 7 years into my career to get my first one, and like a year into Gong. And then it took me a whole 4 months into the reader to get one. So I felt good. And I reached out to a lawyer friend as well. And the first thing I like laid it all out there, and the first response was, well, you made it when you got your first C&D. So I was like, cool. So we need to print that out and frame it. But there's a line in there which says you should not basically reveal, that's not the word, but you should not reveal that this exists and you cannot share it. And I was like, isn't that ironic that you're sending me a document to silence my voice because and it was bullshit too. It was you just didn't like the way I talked about you, and it wasn't anything, negative, at least in my opinion. But you also want to hide the fact that you're trying to silence me as well. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And so when I was talking to my lawyer friend, I said, I've been known to be a bit of a wise ass. That word should is not really very strong. It's just like a preference. To which I said, fuck your preference. But yeah, this stuff happens all the time. People, they fire people out of nowhere, try to silence them. And
Yeah, it's a hard knock. So
Are you
I'm
going to
proud of
pull like an Adam Robinson and be like, 6 Cents sent me a C&D and I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to tell you all the nasty details.
So you know what's funny is that did cross my mind
Yeah.
just because I go, okay, how do I want to play this? Now I have either watched, I actually didn't watch soap operas, but I watched like, I don't know, WWE growing up. And so any conflict, I see marketing. Like when I hear a story, like immediately, and when me and you were talking like, hey, what do we want to cover on the show? You're like, well, this is like influencer deal. Like I kind of fucked up. And I was like, go on.
Yeah.
Like my ears perk up because I know that conflict is drama and drama is good content.
Yeah.
Now I want it to be constructive.
Yeah.
And the thing too is I know it will make for good content, meaning it will grab attention. But I'm always mindful of protecting my reputation. And no knock on Adam. He's building a very specific reputation in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And I went, you know what? There's not enough upside for me to put this on blast, though I could, and, you know, kind of rally my audience, like, look how bad this is, do the punch up and call them out, because you burn a lot of bridges that way. And, you know, and Adam's, you know, he made it very public, so I don't feel bad talking about it. Like he clearly was like, I don't give a shit about anyone there or any relationships. Yeah. Me personally, I'm like, that's not my look. And so this is the first time I've talked about it, which I don't care. And I'm sure I'll post about it eventually. But yeah, no, I'm just like, I could do the really loud and proud way. I was like, or you know what? I'll take the post down because it's really like, I don't care. You know what I mean? And like, I didn't want to invest so much energy into this like bullshit. So yeah, that's my approach.
And coming from the aggressive commenter, right? One thing I am very cognizant about is when I post, like actually putting content out there, I try not to shit on anybody. And
really?
Yeah, which is so interesting. Like no one would think, no one would think that I would do that, but I'm actually kind of like business in the front, party in the comments, like a LinkedIn mullet, right? So like I do the party in the comments, but even in the comments, like I think I just made fun of one person the other day because it was an AI comment, and now I just respond to every AI comment with LOL, okay, sir, and I put the robot emoji, like just to say like, I see you, I know what you're doing, and it's useless. Yeah. But, you know, like sometimes Anthony will say, you need to take examples of bad landing pages and like put them up and like talk about, you know, you doing audits in public. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing. We were in-house marketers. I've done a lot of ads against my better judgment because some stakeholder made me do it. Right? Like there was an ad, they were like, so great. We made these great sets of ads. And then we send it for review and it comes back with 250% ROI. And it pained me to put that out into the universe with my name and reputation on the line. My whole thing is I just want the marketers to win so badly because like it's been a rough couple of years for us. We're all trying to do the best with what we have, which is so little these days. Like our budgets are cut, our teams are cut. They're just trying to survive and keep their jobs. They don't even know if they're going to have it next month. And so I'm just not trying to do that. I know friends who have done that, and then they'll send me screenshots of the marketer actually messaging them saying like, that was not cool, you know, that, you know, like them trying. And I just don't want to be the person that beats someone down. It's just not my style. So I actually do try to share good examples. So I did one where it was like the problem blocks. And I'm like, here are 3 problem blocks with companies who are doing them right. And it kind of implies what you're doing wrong. But that's kind of who I want to be, is like the funny lift you up, not funny punch you down, unless you're Devin Reed. In which case,
I'm glad you added that last bit. No, it's easy. I was joking with you, but I do get that vibe where it's, I say SaaS because it's like a fun thing to say, but it's like punching up is always kind of welcome, especially on LinkedIn. Like punching up works. There's a bunch of ways you can play it. Punching down is obviously a bad look, but the thing people forget is, yes, what you say and do right now might get you attention.
Yes.
But will you pay for it in your reputation over time? And there's people out there that say, you know, call it subtweets on LinkedIn or calling out certain people. Like there's like, you know, tagging people and talking shit. It's like, congrats, you got 800 reactions today. Congrats, you got 400,000 views. But there's now people who don't like you. And you're just like, you're burning future opportunities taking
Yes.
that route. So you're doing a great job of doing the positive route and uplifting people. And I think the comments is also kind of like a cool and better place to like kind of play the fence a little bit of like, you know what I mean? Throwing little jabs here and there at the old D read, which I and many other people do enjoy. I can say that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the piece where I don't want to, the bad examples and the good examples, I mean, those are important and people learn by example. I've learned that at these talks that I was just part of and looking at that. And I'm like, yeah, people do live by example, but I think they get it, you know. Sometimes people will come up to me and be like, oh, I've been trying to do that internally. I just can't get the approval. And it's like, you know, the CEOs aren't going to see it. The CMOs that are giving those wrong directions aren't going to see it. It's going to be the marketers. And then if they get a little reprieve from LinkedIn because they feel like they're going to learn something that they can apply in their careers, and then they get to laugh a little bit because they see a funny comment, I think that's good. You know, that's something I miss. I would have been on LinkedIn a lot more if I saw a lot more personality. And so just giving people, you know, like that opportunity to also shine. And I feel like that sells it more. If you're like, look at how great Noble is or whatever. And then Noble's like, oh shit, Tas like loves us. We should reach out to her. And it happened a couple of times. Like one was I always reference a site called Accessibility that does like website accessibility stuff. And someone said, hey, we heard you say it on a podcast. The VP of marketing there wants to talk to you and like try to partner and do something. Webflow contact me because I just happened to mention them.
Love Webflow.
But like not doing it in a shitty light. So
no one wants to like if you you know shit on the Reader website, it's not going to motivate that marketing team to be like, hey, let's reach out to Tas and like hang out with her or pay her money. That said, the Fletch guys, I think they do a good job. If you ever see Anthony on stage, he's basically a stand-up comedian with like a marketing minor. But that's also an intentional strategy where they're like, and I think they came out the gate a little hot. Like, here's what bad looks like. But I think they've probably gotten feedback, and I know there's been some public conflict. Yes. And I think they did a great job of pivoting a little bit to being like, okay, here's bad and good in the same thing. So we're improving. So it's kind of like, it's not a poke in the eye. It's more of like a poke in the rib, but like, here's how to get better. And I like to, at least I didn't see that they like came out like apologize. Like, you don't need to come out and apologize. Like, you were doing it on purpose and it worked. And a lot of people liked it. And I'm glad that they kind of are, you know, they're still, you know, finding their voice, freeing their voice and figuring it out. So they did a good job.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody can be us, you know.
No, not you. No, for sure. Not everyone can be as good as Tas. Well, thank you for hanging out with me, sharing your wisdom and your experiences. I know a lot of us got better by viewing and listening. Where can folks go to get more Tas in their life other than waiting for you to hit them up in the comments?
Just find me on LinkedIn. I respond to almost every DM. It's kind of an illness. I just like people. I'm an ambivert. My husband just shivers at the thought of talking to anybody, so he can't fathom that I'm even doing this. But I like it, and I like meeting new people, and I have no boundaries, so that's a problem. But find me, Tas Bober, Tas like SAS Bober on LinkedIn.
And we'll put the link to Scroll Lab in the show notes as well.
Yeah, and Fletch is writing the homepage, so
we got to do a teardown with them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with me.
All right, of course.
That's a wrap for today. And if you're still listening, you must really crave growth, and I respect that. Here are 3 ways I can help you grow your content right now. First, subscribe to the Reader newsletter. You'll get actionable writing and marketing advice delivered straight to your inbox every Saturday morning. 2, make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube so you get access to new episodes and new videos when they drop. And 3, if you want to sponsor or hire The Reader, you can send me an email at yo@thereader.co. That's yo@thereader.co. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us get new sponsors and grow. I'll see you next time.